Obtaining a human body is difficult. Death and impermanence are imminent. Samsara is suffering, but true Dharma is available now. Don't squander your life.
Tell me the truth, I want to know. Just where to look and how to go. I need to find true peace. I need to understand, to bring my suffering to an end.
Release the love I hold inside. Let me be true and never hide behind a face of fear or animosity. To break the chains of misery.
How to let go and just be free. The time is now, it's destiny. Surrender now that I have found a way to keep somehow more than a broken vow.
Let me always forever be on one accord, truth and me, abiding in sweet grace, the glow on my face, victorious to win the race. How to let go and just be free. The time is now, it's destiny. Surrender now that I have found a way to keep somehow more than a broken vow. The noble path, I walk it every day, and then I realize there's more to life than only bitterness and lies. I close my eyes. I found the way, the course that leads to ease. A liberating path that frees.
I found the way, a course that leads to ease, a liberating path that frees.
I will let go and just be free. The way it's clear, the victory. How to let go now that I've found a way to keep right now. A true, unbroken vow. Obtaining a human body is difficult. Death and impermanence are imminent. Samsara is suffering, but true Dharma is available now. Don't squander your life. Good morning. I'd like to read a little bit from lesson 1. This is the very beginning of a Dharma series that was offered by Buddha Master. And it's about understanding the purpose of studying Buddhism and cultivating oneself, like why we do what we do. She says, as you know, the purpose of studying Buddhism and cultivating oneself is to escape from the cycle of reincarnation. So we think it's all to be good people, but there is an ultimate purpose to the practice. And if we just stay, it's like I want to go from here across town. If I just stay walking from here to the corner, back here to the corner, back here to the corner, I will never get across town. And at the end of the day, I will think I have accomplished something, but I've only walked from here to the corner. And so our practice can get to be like that. So we think like every day I meditate for 30 minutes, or I meditate for 10 minutes, or I meditate for an hour. And what is that meditation? Well, I sit and I quiet my mind and I don't talk, and then I just like go into like a real copacetic sleep state or something. And when I get up, I feel better. But that is not taking us towards the ultimate goal. We will never get there if we think that that is the goal. Now, it doesn't mean that these kinds of practices aren't useful. Uh, I'm just saying that they are not the ultimate purpose of taking up the practice of Dharma. So today, I'd like to really home in on the true purpose of studying Buddhism and cultivating oneself. It says, and we know that the purpose of cultivating oneself is to actually escape from the cycle of reincarnation. That means getting off the wheel or the cycle of life. Nobody comes into a practice to what? Die? So they're not really, don't really understand what that means to escape from the cycle of reincarnation. We want to have better jobs, better homes, be more successful with our family, want to make more money, want to, all of the things that we use in this life. I can tell you that these practices won't give you that, because those things are tied in to cause and effect. So you have to understand what cause and effect is. And if you don't, you'll have an unreasonable expectation, or you think you're practicing Dharma or Buddhism when you're actually not. So we also know that to achieve that goal, to escape from the cycle of reincarnation, one must follow an accomplished great monk or nun, or great virtuous one, or great Rinpoche, or a Lama, or a great Dharma king. Simply speaking, one must become a disciple of a master who teaches the correct Dharma. And after taking refuge in the three jewels, one must work hard in understanding and following the precepts, developing concentration, and building Dharma wisdom. One must also work towards extinguishing greed and hatred and ignorance. One must study and practice the Buddha Dharma according to its principles. And through doing all of these things, in the end, one will be able to liberate oneself from the cycle of reincarnation. However, in our earthly realm, most people have a different perception in their minds. They think that the most important part is in learning Buddha Dharma, or at least under me, speaking of Buddha Master, is to practice mantras and mudras and other Dharma techniques in order to possess boundless supernatural powers. And they regard this as the highest level of achievement. I can tell you with certainty that this is what's in their minds. But in reality, the Buddha Dharma is not like that. The Buddha Dharma comprises of 84,000 different Dharma methods. And each Dharma method leads to liberation from the cycle of reincarnation. Shakyamuni Buddha spoke of each Dharma method in the various sutras and the other Dharma teachings. All of these methods can lead living beings towards the path of accomplishment, towards a state of liberation from samsara. And all of these methods can lead one to become a holy being. Many of my disciples still have misconceptions about esoteric Dharma. They'll ask, Buddha Master, how should I practice the preliminary practices? Buddha Master, how should I visualize my yidam? Or Buddha Master, how should I practice the formal practice? Buddha Master, how should I contemplate my heart win? How can I visualize the bright spots? A disciple from Taiwan asked me this morning, Buddha Master, can you tell me how I can clearly visualize the bright spots? As soon as I heard that question, I thought of many things. How could this be the perspective of one who truly cultivates himself? Simply put, learning the Dharma is related to the disciples' underlying karmic conditions. I repeat, simply put, the learning the Dharma is related to the disciples' underlying karmic conditions. I know when to transmit to you the appropriate Dharma according to the principles of Buddhism. In esoteric Buddhism, the key to learn is to learn the rituals from your master. The master initiates you, teaches you the ritual, and teaches you the applicable mudra, but then you visualize according to those things, and you can then attain what is called the samadhi of accomplishment. At this time, because you correspond with the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, your practice produces effects. In summary, once you have a mantra and a mudra, an object of visualization, an enormous amount of energy will be released in your daily sitting practice. And this is the typical process of cultivation. It is an indispensable practice. However, many of you disciples do not understand an important issue. This issue is often ignored, and people tend not to discuss it. It's about your attitude towards lectures or Dharma talks. Whenever you are told to attend a Dharma talk by me or an abbot from a temple or a certain Dharma teacher, you will, of course, feel happy. However, you will also feel a certain anxiety and pressure. You'll think, why listen to a lecture on the Dharma? I want to learn esoteric Dharma right away. My disciples, this is wrong. Attending lectures is really listening to the Dharma. You're learning the Dharma from the lecture. Let me tell you something honestly from the bottom of my heart. There are many stories from the history of Buddhism. Buddhist history contains many stories that emanated either from the Tibetan or the Han Chinese region of China. Some cultivators practiced many esoteric dharmas in their lifetime, but they had very little achievement. However, when they became old, they began to understand certain principles. They realized that their cultivation went the wrong way because they seldom listened to Dharma lectures and therefore did not really understand the principles. This is a common mistake also made today, and it is a hindrance. They do not like attending lectures or listening to Dharma talks as much as receiving an initiation. They become excited when called to receive an initiation. They think, this is my day at last. My master is finally going to confer an initiation upon me. Let me tell you something honestly. Initiations are really not important. An initiation is nothing more than the planting of seeds. However, listening to lectures or Dharma talks is not the same concept. Once the seeds of an initiation have been planted, they must be fostered and they must grow. They must be fertilized and nurtured if they are to grow. Fertilizing and nurturing entails adopting a series of scientific management methods. This is where listening to lectures comes into play. That is, where listening to the Dharma becomes important. If you don't listen to Dharma, your seeds will not grow because you won't have concrete methods to guide your development. For example, you might ruin seeds in the normal world through excessive irrigation, too much water, or kill them with excessive fertilizer, burn them up, or misapplication of the fertilizer. I remember when I had the bakery for the kids, and I didn't really know how to bake myself, follow the recipe. We had like we would make like 500 loaves of bread a day. every morning and deliver them to the store. So we had these big vats like this we had to mix up, and I put all the ingredients in it, and I had the recipe. So I'm looking at all the ingredients in the recipe, and I put them all in the mix, and what I didn't realize was that there is a certain time that you put.
Sorry,
That's all right.
I don't know why he's doing that.
There's a certain time that you put certain ingredients into the mix. So what I did was I put the what do you call it?
Yeast.
The yeast. I just dumped the yeast in there with everything else. And no, it didn't rise. It didn't rise because the yeast, when it didn't work, and I'm looking at all of this mix I've got here, and and then I went back and really looked at the instructions. It said you had to put it in water that was 106 degrees, and I didn't do that, and so the yeast couldn't do what it had to do. So then I boiled some water and put the yeast in at 106, and I put that in there, and then I could have made 1,000 loaves of bread that morning instead of 500. But it was not that I didn't have all the ingredients, but I had not followed all the instructions. So many times we're working at our practice, but because we don't have all of the instructions, the practices can't really work for us. And so we talk about these 84,000 different methods or 84,000 different teachings. It's not that you need all 84,000, but whichever method you need all the instructions, and you also need the order of the instructions. So sometimes in life, we're here already, right? We're here already. We've encountered certain things in our life, certain teachings, we've adapted certain behaviors. We're all coming from different places that informs how we think and act in the world. So we're already out in the middle of the ocean. It's not like we're on the shore now. We can take it all in order, all in step. No, we're already here. And so we necessarily are going to make some mistakes in how we function, because we have to unpack everything from where we are, from the understanding we already have, from the things we've already experienced, and how we understand those experiences. And so this is where the Dharma practice becomes very specific and individual. So you can't just make blanket statements and everybody follow that like a herd of cattle. That might not go, that particular thing, for everybody. It goes for somebody, but not everybody. So part of this process can get tricky, because if we just hear everything that's said and we take it for me, it can be a statement of truth, but it is not for me to exercise or take up at this time. Something different is called for. And this is where wisdom starts to come in. So we're not just following like blind sheep, being led around by a hook in the nose, but we have to develop a capacity for discrimination, a capacity for, and to be able to do that, the mind just can't be running all over the place. So meditation has occupies a particular space in the development. But if we think all we have to do is meditate, then we're gonna really waste most of our time. This practice is more about 90% cultivation and 10% meditation, as opposed to 90% meditation and 10% cultivation. And so because we have not understood that when the Dharma came from the East and was brought back to the West, and I'm not speaking of those who were Eastern, but now I'm speaking of those who were Western, who brought the Dharma to the West, you have to know what it's like over there. When we go over to the East, or well, now it's been 20, 30 years, oh, it's been 20 years, I think, since I've been to the East. But when we would go over there, you know, they did not even want to deal with us. Our whole view of life, our whole like rugged individualism, and our ego base. I remember one time when President Obama met the president of China, and they bowed to each other. It was all over the news. Did you see that he bowed his head to the Chinese president? You know, and it was a whole big hoopla about him bowing his head. We don't bow our heads to anyone. And so he was following a custom, you know, of acknowledging each other, you know, on an equal basis. But our way of interacting and understanding what is power, you know, is different. And so when we would go to the East to study with the monks, only thing they did was tell us, go sit down and be quiet. Just go sit down and meditate. So we would go and we would be sitting all day, and they say, don't move. We'd sit all day. A lot of us in the early days ended up with, I think it's called thrombosis, or when you deep vein thrombosis and things like that. When you because all we did was sat. But we didn't learn anything about the principles of Dharma and about the order, because they were thinking like they can't get it. They just can't get it, you know. And so we come back home and we started Dharma centers. And they were all about meditation. And about the very first part of meditation. It's mindfulness. Whenever you find mindfulness in the sutras, mindfulness never stands alone. Mindfulness is always connected to something. Mindfulness of what? So the teaching is around the what, and paying attention to the what, as opposed to mindfulness standing alone as a discipline. And because of that, we didn't go that far. We couldn't make that much progress in our meditation. You can't just tell your mind to sit down and be quiet. You know, mostly what we considered meditation was like just kind of falling into like a little nebulous kind of place, you know, almost like in a deep hole. One of my teachers trained at the Shaolin Temple. He would, yeah. And but you know what I was gonna say is he was always upset with Bruce Lee, you know, because he trained with when Bruce Lee was there training. He was like, oh, Bruce Lee wasn't that much, you know, because there were others there who were better than him. He just had the kind of personality, and he got snatched for the movies. But I always felt that he just had a little bit of jealousy around Bruce Lee. I mean, he was excellent in his martial arts, but I could see he wasn't excellent in his virtue. And so I was so proud, you know. I was telling him how long I could sit and meditate. You know, I could meditate for hours and hours and hours. He said, "Yeah, I heard you over there." so, and it really got me, because I thought I had really reached some kind of level in my meditation. But what I realized was I had just fallen into a deep hole. I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know anything about the three bodies of a Buddha, the four wisdoms. I didn't know anything about any order, about anything. I'm just sitting down, and I can be quiet. I can shut up for 8 hours. And I thought I had some attainment. And so that's when I began to wonder, well, what have I missed here? I'm reading all the contemporary Western books, and I'm liking them because they helping me not like they're helping me with my behavior patterns in a way. I don't want to. I don't want to hurt people. I remember I could walk outside the church and get into an argument with somebody right before the door was closed. But somehow through the practice of the Dharma, it helped me correct some of those habits. So I'm thinking like this mindfulness thing is pretty good. It's working, and it is very good. I'm just simply saying that's like going from here to the corner when you're trying to go all the way across town. He speaks a lot in this particular discourse about um, esoteric practice because he's talking here. I think this was when he was let me see where he was. Yeah, he was in Taiwan at the time, so it was and they are very much overboard in terms of initiations and thinking that it's going to give them some kind of supernormal power, but only our cultivation leads to higher attainment or uncommon, or not common, unordinary or extraordinary capabilities. So it doesn't mean that um, we don't have to think of them as supernatural. We can just think of them as super normal. That means that it takes a certain amount of cultivation and development, being in certain states before uh, a fuller expression of our capabilities manifest. So you can think of it like that. You don't have to think about it like woo woo supernormal powers. You just have a greater capacity. It's like your bandwidth is more expanded. If we thought like high-minded about it, all you have to do is think of a dog. A dog has a more expanded capacity for hearing than we do. So if I am all hyped up about supernormal powers, I'm just trying to get the powers of a dog, just trying to be able to, um, hear higher and lower frequencies, or perhaps say a cat who can see more than what we can see because based on their classification of being, they have that capacity. So if my seeing could be expanded, I might just be coming up to the capacity of a cat. So there's no way that we should be high-minded about it. No way to think that it's such a strange thing. That a lot of these practices expand our our uh, our normal limitations or barriers to interact in the world. That's all it is. So when you talk about a capacity to read the minds of of others, it doesn't mean that it's some woo-woo kind of thing. But there are, when you enter into certain states, there is a capacity commensurate with the the vastness of the state. That's all. And so sometimes something will manifest, and you think, oh, we immediately tie it into specialness. I'm special. We tie it into, and we develop some kind of pride around that because we have not understood, that it's just a matter. And I can tell you, it helps us to understand why people that we think should not have certain capacities have them, and why some people who we think should have certain capacities don't have it. Because this is like about cultivating. We can both have a field, but if I plow mine and you plow yours, and I fertilize mine and you don't fertilize yours, then my crops are probably going to be bigger than yours. That's all. It's not magic. It's just science. It's just ordinary. So some people around certain practices really put their whole heart and their effort in, and that particular practice is going to yield results. Part of that is dependent upon their commitment and dedication to it. Their when I say belief here, I don't mean a blind belief, but they're all inness that gives energy and gives life to the practice so that it yields results. And someone else can just be blasé of what they're doing and say, well, I did it. I do that sometimes myself. It's like going to bed and I haven't done my Vajrasattva. I can just get it out real quick and I just run through my pages and do my Vajrasattva thing and say I did it, but I might as well, have not done it because I didn't feed it with any kind of life, I didn't give any quality to the action. And without that, you're not going to yield the benefit that you look for. As Panya, you said, you might as well just pat your head and chew bubble gum. So sometimes people practice for more than 10 years or for 20 years, yet all those years, they don't make that much progress. And I can tell you that all those years may not match one day of listening to a Dharma talk. Did you hear me? Decades of practice may not be worth a single day's Dharma talk. That is because before the practitioner attended that talk, he did not understand many principles of Buddhism. He engaged in futile practice all day long. He engages in mistaken practice all day long. He engages in a practice of negative karma even all day long. Alone, he racks his brains and trains himself, exerts effort, applies mudras, recites mantras, but in the end, the effects are meager, and he can't find a reason. However, it is often the case that one day such a person listens to the Dharma, a Dharma discourse of mine or a discourse of a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. Retreat for 10 years and it would still not match that one day of listening to the Dharma. What is the reason for this? That is because during that 10-year period, he would not have discovered his own shortcomings. But when he listened to the Dharma that one day, his shortcomings were quickly revealed to him. Or when he read that book, that one day, his shortcomings were quickly revealed, became apparent to him. Now, I'm talking about books written by truly magnificent practitioners. I'm not referring to books written by ordinary so-called Dharma teachers. Do you understand? And they said yes. Have any of you experienced what I'm talking about? I sincerely tell you that you're very fortunate to have the opportunity to listen to the Dharma in the course of your cultivation. Listening to the Dharma for a day may achieve more than you would achieve in 10 years or even decades of daily sitting Dharma practice. Listening to the Dharma is extremely important. However, many people who do not understand this feel annoyed when encouraged to listen to the Dharma. Actually, listening to the Dharma is a reward for the merit that you have already accumulated. You see, just something like that could change your mind and the way you think about something and the way that you hold it. It's like figuring out how to open the box. I watch it like a baby will try to figure out how to open the box of cookies and they're pulling on this and they're pulling on that. But when they But this to me just opened up something because it let me know what the basis is for being able to penetrate and understand the truth of a teaching. I can hear teaching all day long, and if I don't understand it, or I haven't penetrated, deeply enough that it becomes something that benefits me, then it doesn't benefit me. I just heard something and I could repeat it or not repeat it, but I have not opened to something beyond where I was before I heard it. So he said, this is how you should think. Listening to Dharma is my reward. It's for the merit that I have accumulated to be able to be in this place to hear this wonderful Dharma. Without such merit, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to do so. So listening to even a little Dharma is an opportunity that is difficult to come by. So this increases our gratitude for what we encounter that helps us to correct our understanding, that helps us to correct our behaviors. It gives us that instigates even a mind that wants to correct. Sometimes you could be talking to somebody, you could just tell they're not even trying to think right about that matter. They don't want to think right about it. They don't want to do right about it right now. And so you're wasting your time. But what if when someone heard that, say, oh, don't feel that way, don't think that way, it could just listen and add that to the information that's already in their head about a certain situation. It could begin to work on and perhaps balance out a view so that somebody could just get normal. It's and this becomes a habit if we keep turning our mind to it. That's how we become more flexible. That's how we can grow and expand. That's how we become more willing to work something out with somebody. That's how we become even able to see somebody else's view along with our own. That's how we become able to maybe see and give more credit to somebody else's view than our own. It doesn't mean my view is wrong, but maybe that's even a higher view, but I couldn't see it because I didn't have it. I had my view, but it opens us up in these kinds of ways. Now I'm talking about where we live and how we live and move and have our being in the world today. I'm not talking about something that's in the books and something that we blah blah about Buddhist studies and all of that. But I'm talking about how we develop ourselves as human beings and as practitioners to transform into a higher class of being. So my disciples attending lectures and listening to the Dharma is the most important aspect of your cultivation. It's even more important than daily sitting Dharma practice. However, it would benefit you if you sit daily. So we generally leave 2 hours in the morning for people to do their individual Dharma practice. Now, if you don't have a practice, somebody can come see me and I'll help you take up one. But if you tell me that you're a Buddhist, then I assume that you are doing some kind of practice, and a practice that has been given to you or that you've taken up because you saw the benefits of that particular practice for you, the benefit for you, and so you take up that practice, and so it's important to have a daily sitting practice. But because we all do different practices, because we all have different personalities, we all have, different challenges, things that we're working on overcoming, or things that we hide and hope you don't see it, or and so, but we try to work on that in our private space so it doesn't have to get worked out in public space, So it says, remember what I am telling you. Attending lectures and listening to the Dharma is as effective as a diamond drill that can pierce through any material made of porcelain, glass, or brick. On the other hand, our daily sitting Dharma practice is comparable to a piece of stone that slowly grinds the porcelain, the glass, or the brick. And that's why sometimes it's difficult to listen to a good Dharma talk, because it does point out our shortcomings. Nobody want to hear that. We say we want to until we start hearing it. And then, but without attending, in this way, you could not possibly see the shortcomings that you have. I mean, that's why we have them, because we can't see that we have them. We're doing like, I'm doing the best I can. But then something gets pointed out to me. My first reaction is, but that's not the whole story. You got to understand the whole context, like why I'm justified in thinking this way or feeling this way. And he just keeps knocking over the justifications until you left without excuse. Well, now I got to work on it then. And so then we start to work on it. And gradually, we start to take on this mindset that helps us to see the unfruitfulness and the lack of benefit of what we thought was a benefit. And it's only when I see it can its value begin to work for me. I have to see it first. I mean, if I don't see it, then it's not working for me. But as our mind gets inculcated with another way to look at something, another way to hold something, be the bigger man, you go low, I go high kind of thing, and they'll say time out for going high, knock them out, but I'm thinking, no, my mind is constantly turning in this direction. After a while, it wasn't my mind in the beginning, it wasn't my thought in the beginning, but the more I reflected on it, the more I looked at it, the more I watched it, the more I saw the benefit of it. And then gradually it becomes my thought. It was not my thought in the beginning, but gradually it becomes the way I think. And so now I can act out of it, but act with a kind of truthfulness, a kind of integrity, inner honesty. It really does become my aspiration. Now, sometimes I can try and I just don't make it. My muscles aren't exercised enough. I can't lift a 30-pound weight, so I have to go and take a smaller weight. Won't be mean, it means I might not necessarily produce the best result of my attempt or my endeavor, but I at least tried to the capacity that I have. And that's why it's important for us to not denigrate ourselves. What I love about the Dharma is if I'm too high, it can bring me down. If I'm too low, it can lift me up. And finding that balance is what's important. So we have to be careful about what we say. We have to be careful about what we say about others, yeah, but we have to be careful about what we say about ourselves. So part of the training that we do here is about directing, people to not speak harm against themselves and not speak down against themselves. The other side of it is for me not to have to pump you up. It is like you have to do it. You got to inflate your own tire, but not inflate it so much that it becomes grotesque, like egoic, but just the right amount. So this is constantly balancing. If too much air in the tire, let a little bit of it out. And you get to know what is the, I guess, the equal space within yourself. You get to know what is your equal space. Before then, we're acting out of character. But when you're in your space of character, there's not even a recognition of high or low, up or down. And so this developing this mind of equality is what we're after in all of our practices. I mean, you can't have a high without it being in reference to something, a reference to a low. So whenever there is a high, I can know I'm off balance. Whenever there's a low, I can know I'm off balance. And it's my job to come to that equilateral.
Equilibrium.
Equilibrium. No, I was going to say equilateral space. Okay, take off space, equilibrium. But it's for me to do, you see, because until I do it, it's not done. It's not done if you give me a little grace or if you give me a little comeuppance. It's not done because you can't do my work for me. And so we learn that we each have to do our own work. So he says, so without attending Dharma talks, listening to the Dharma, reading the Dharma, you could not possibly see your shortcomings. You would not be able to tell then if your cultivation is on the right track. It would be even more difficult for you to recognize what is erroneous or heretical Dharma. So our world is now filled with erroneous and heretical Dharma. To make matters worse, this Dharma has been spread by many so-called great Rinpoches, great Dharma teachers, and great Dharma kings. Many Buddhist disciples are overly impressed with such people. Anybody that comes from Tibet, we think they're a great master. They just happen to be born there. Anybody, some are great masters, many are not. They think that a certain Rinpoche or Dharma teacher is great and world renowned. They prostrate themselves in admiration before them, and they decide to follow and learn from him or her. What they do not know is that although their teacher wholeheartedly intends to promote the Buddha Dharma and benefit all living beings, he or she unknowingly engages in demonic practices. And what does demonic mean?
Anything that takes you away from your goal.
That takes you away from your goal. You'll never get to your goal following erroneous teachings and erroneous practices. Let me give you an example. Recently, a disciple brought me a book. He told me that he planned to distribute this book to as many people as possible. I didn't make any specific comments on the book right away. I told him, don't distribute the book at this time. Nowadays, there's serious problems with some Buddhist books. Let me read the book first. If the book is acceptable, you can then distribute it. If it is unacceptable, you must not distribute it. He left the book with me, and I started to go through the book while I was eating. I immediately saw some big problems. On the surface, what the book said appears to be very correct. Most ordinary cultivators would think that that's a great book. However, I can tell that that author has no realization at all. The book is full of nonsense. He quotes words from the sutras and provides superficial explanations, and he misguides living beings, leading them onto the wrong path, leading them to biased views. I didn't need to finish the first chapter. I saw serious problems on the first page. However, the audio tapes and books of this Dharma teacher are distributed all over the world. Buddhists everywhere prostrate themselves before him. They regard him as a great master of this generation. and as a God who has descended to this earth, as a bodhisattva who has voluntarily come back to this world, I sincerely tell you that such people are truly pitiable. Let me tell you how serious the problem is. He quoted from the sutras. What he was trying to show can be generally stated as follows. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas possess Buddha nature, and all living beings also possess Buddha nature. Thus, there is no difference between the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas on the one hand, and all living beings on the other. Students, this is completely wrong. Why? It is true that all living beings possess the virtue and wisdom of a Buddha. However, it is only from the perspective of emptiness that they possess the virtue and the wisdom of a Buddha. The negative karma of living beings is deep. Living beings have this karmic hindrance body, this smelly skin bag that is their body. They are worried and vexed. They are attached to things. They engage in greed, hatred, ignorance, craving, joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure. They're deluded by the five aggregates of form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. They're moved by gain and loss, by honor and disgrace, and so on. Their realization is at the level of ordinary beings, and as a result, living beings are not able to soar. They're not able to, quote, ride on the clouds. They're not able to transform themselves. On the other hand, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have all these abilities, and their realization is boundless. That is why living beings are not equal to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They're not equal based on their karma. They're only equal in terms of having a Buddha nature. Even though this is the case, living beings have not realized their Buddha nature. So they must cultivate themselves in order to realize that. However, that Dharma teacher claimed that living beings became Buddhists in the infinite past. He claimed that because of the contaminations of attachment and erroneous thinking, the living beings later descended from the level of Buddhists to the level of ordinary beings. Disciples, do you think he's wrong? So not only is he wrong, he has committed a terrible offense. The offense he committed is quite serious. Why? According to what he wrote, a Buddha may, if he's not careful, degenerate into an ordinary being someday. Kuan Yin Bodhisattva may also degenerate into an ordinary being if she's not careful. What that Dharma teacher claimed was that they may lose their Buddha nature. My disciples, please remember that one can never lose one's Buddha nature. When Shakyamuni Buddha became enlightened under the Bodhi tree, he realized that all living beings possess that nature. There is not a single living being who does not have Buddha nature. A single living being, not just human beings, but all kinds of classifications of beings. You know, whether they be hell beings or hungry ghost beings or animals or human beings or devas or gods. However, due to erroneous thinking, defilements, attachment, ignorance, which has existed since time without beginning, living beings have been unable to see their Buddha nature. They have never seen their Buddha nature. Hence, they do not understand and have not, or that's what it means to say they have not realized it. That is why they're ordinary beings. Now, once you have, because you enter into a certain state and you can glimpse that Buddha nature, you can glimpse that Dharmakaya, do you think you could explain it to anybody in a way that they would understand what it was? No, they'd have to have the experience of it, but they can have the experience of it because it exists. there is the Buddha nature. What does this show? Ordinary beings and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have the same Buddha nature. However, the state of realization of ordinary beings is different from that of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So that Dharma teacher asserted that ordinary beings lost the state of realization of a Buddha that they once had. One who has become a Buddha will never lose the state of realization of a Buddha. Why would I really work this hard? Why would I go after something if there was a chance I could just lose it again? And so, although it seems like splitting hairs, it's really not, because it parlays into the amount of confidence we have in the process that we're undergoing. I always felt like when I was young, if I was going to hell, I'm going wide and hard. You know, I'm not going to be like tiptoeing, being just a tad awful good. I'm going to go and have a good time if I'm going there, you know. And so it's in the same way that I have more of an aspiration to cultivate myself well. But before one has a full realization of, one can fall back. So we get a glimpse of something every once in a while, you know, and we think, whoa, something just happened. I just experienced something. And we can't wait to run and tell somebody what we just experienced, you know. And you should know that that is the fruit of your work, the fruit of your effort. But it's not sustained, and that's why we talk about getting into jhana states, but we can't hold on to them because we don't have a full enough realization that is backed by our cultivation and our discipline to be able to sustain that view, you know. And so we touch it and we have it. Like I can get up on Monday and like I'm like all gung-ho, you know, I'm all gung-ho for the Dharma. And I'm gonna what I'm gonna do this week is I'm gonna do my preliminary practice, and then after that I'm gonna do my Savanavana Viskamam, and after I do that one, I'm gonna do my Kuan Yin, then I'm gonna do my Vajrasattva, and I'm just thinking about all of them and all of these good qualities. You know, I'm going to be compassionate, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be helpful, I'm going to be wise, and my mind is just going. And I do it on that first day on Monday, and I did all of them, every practice I have. And I'm feeling good. I can't wait till tomorrow. Come tomorrow, do a few of them. I have to do all, you know, I'll do 2 or 3 of them. Or I'm doing them and then the phone rings. And this might be important, might be somebody calling me from the Dharma hall. And I'll stop and I'll look at that. No, it wasn't somebody from the Dharma hall. So then I close that one. There's another message. Oh, that's from Blue City. Let me see what she got to say. And then before I think about, I don't have to do all of these today. I've already done 3. That's good enough. Because now my mind is just gone in a whole nother direction. And so that's what happens to us. And so it does take effort for us to stay with something. But when we find that we're just doing it by rote, what I say is just keep doing it until you can break through that barrier of boredom that you get. But then there comes a point where I don't care how much I do this, like right now I'm bored with it, and I'm not going to get better just because I'm like pounding my way through it. So I will set it aside. I will pick up something else, dharmic related, that interests me, you know. And so we have to find ways to come out of this, you know, it's about learning how to swim. And when I was learning, I couldn't swim as fast as other people that were learning the same time as me. But my instructor showed me it was because of the way that I was using my arms. So I was basically cutting through the water instead of moving the water. And so, but once he showed me that, I had it going on. And so we have to learn through trial and error. Now remember, we done been dropped, we like I because of some beings' consciousness, there arose Pannavati. There I am the outpicturing of that, you know. So now I gotta figure out what time it is. I gotta figure out what's going on with me, where I am, how my mind thinks, what patterns I have. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm figuring out me and where I fit in everything, where I am on the map of existence. That's a full-time job. It's a full-time job. I'm learning about me, and I'm finding out that me, we call it false. False meaning not permanent. I can think one way right now, and 30 minutes from now, I can think entirely different way about the very same thing. I'm not as fixed as I think I am. And so one begins to relax this fixedness that we have about everything. Relaxing, a lot of times we talk about relaxing our judgments, but even before judgment comes discrimination, the differences. It's easier for us to see the differences in everything than the similarities. We go for the differences. No, but it's suppose every time we came together, we looked for the similarity of thought. Suppose if every time we came together, we looked where we could coalesce and be harmonious around whatever activity we're doing. Instead of like, why are they doing it like that? I don't know, what y'all doing now? I suppose that was our constant go-to place. Can you see how much could be accomplished? But we hinder even our good intentions because we are so fixated around discrimination. What's different between this and that? It's a terrible mental blight, but we all have it. It's what produces the stress. It's what brings the weight of life.
My question comes up is like, how do you do that with yourself? Because it's always like, feels like sometimes like back and forth, just like back and forth, just constantly like the good's discriminating bad, the bad's discriminating the good. Like there's just always this teeter.
Mhm. Yes, it's a really good question. The way that I'm just giving you my example. The way I try to work with things is that when I'm thinking one way and I'm starting to be fixated around it, I try to turn my mind to what's the opposite of that, the opposite way to think. I got enough of the way I think, you know. And when I catch myself clamping down around my view or my way, then I recall, when you can't recall if you haven't initiated an action to recall, right? So I'll recall a sutta. My favorite one is 128. It's perfect for me. When the monk says, when I want to do something and somebody else wants to do something else, I say to myself, what a wonderful life it is to be with like-minded practitioners in the Dharma. Why should I do what I want to do? Why not do what they want to do? Out of appreciation for actually having this kind of opportunity to be with like-minded. And so, and then I abandon what I want to do and I do what they want to do. And he was talking about how he finds such great joy in that completely eradicates that mind that wants to have its own way, that wants to differentiate. And then just the weight of it, it's gone. And so there's just this state of happiness when I'm in harmony, with it. So that's what, I try to do, not all the time. Sometimes Pannavati, that vampire, comes back up and she's insistent doing what she wants to do or thinking in the way that she wants to think. And I'm not saying shirk your responsibilities. If you're in charge of something, handle your business. Don't leave it on somebody else. What do you want to do? Whatever you want to do, where you want to go, wherever you want to go. I mean, don't go off to the other end. You start to find, oh, I'm a little too far to the left. Oh, I'm a little too far to the right. And you come back. And then you'll find that space where you feel balanced and that equilibrium is there. And it brings a certain kind of joy, it's not a razzle dazzle, kind of vibrating kind of joy. It brings a kind of bliss, like when you are really thirsty and you drank a glass of water and now you feel like just satisfied. You're just okay. You're okay. And if you notice, that doesn't have the energetics attached to it that even being especially happy has. So the Buddha said that when we're sad or dejected, or angry, mind is agitated. But when we're too joyful, too gleeful, the mind is still agitated. And so you come to this space where you're like abiding and it's just the right, like was it the baby bear?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just right. It's just right. So we're finding our just right space. And it's something in finding that just right space that it creates the stillness for you to like pass through a barrier of ignorance. And you pass through that barrier and you find what's on the other side. It is how things are become apparent to us. We don't have to say, I had a revelation. Things can just become apparent to us. We like these exotic words because it makes it seem like it's bigger, but doesn't have to be, things don't have to be bigger to be better. But there comes this space that there is like no weight, there's no stress, there's no pull, there's I don't know how I missed that. Could you move this way just a little bit?
Me? Amelia?
I'm not pointing at you. No, I'm pointing right here. Yes, just move to the left or the right because I can't always see her. She's having to move her head so that I. Yeah, now beautiful. Thank you. And so it's just like a space of no stress, and then you can just be ordinary. We always talk about ordinary versus like don't be ordinary. It's like don't be common. We talk about sense. Common sense. Like I got as much of the common stuff as I want. I want something. I want uncommon sense. And so we're always talking about that, like improving ourselves in that way. But now I'm giving you the flip side of that. I'm saying, like, just be ordinary. It's like such a relief to be able to just be ordinary. We don't have to try so hard. We don't have to try to be something. We don't have to put on a game face, you know. But it takes a lot of confidence to just be ordinary. And where does that confidence come from? It comes from understanding the principles of the Dharma. When I understand them, then I assume if I don't get in their way, that they will work, you know. But if I get in the way, they can't work. And it's not because they don't work, but because I'm in the way, or I'm being driven by some fear or some insecurity. And so we have to work at looking at our fears and insecurities, you know, and owning them. That is naming it. And really, you know, we can fall in love with our fears, our insecurities, no, we can get so used to them being our constant companion that we sort of like having them around. So first we got to break relationship with that. You know, have to really want to break relationship. And it's like, so for someone, if that's not our identity, what identity would we have? If I'm not this, then who or what am I? And so we go around for that to be reinforced in us. You know, it's a way. And before we know it, we're in a terrible hole and can't help anybody. So having a great desire to be of a help to someone can be the only thing that gets us out of our diminutive self-identity. You know, it has to be that great desire to be a benefit. I want to be a benefit to you more than I want to denigrate myself and say I can't do, I can't help, I can't, you know. So when a person is stuck in those places, I know that they're it's the opposite of being selfless. But you have to see it that way. And to see it that way takes the pointing out. So one who would like to overcome their feelings of inadequacy have to tolerate hearing something that they can reflect on that's different than the voice in their head that's telling them that they're insufficient or deficient or not loved or, you know, all those kinds of things. And that's their work. So we each have different kinds of work to do, but doing our work, we should. That's the best gift that we can offer any other human being, for us to do our work. Some things may take years to resolve. Some things may only take a few minutes or even one time of hearing to resolve. I remember my husband used to smoke cigarettes. Well, he used to do a lot of things before we met, but you know how church girls are. They gonna clean. They like a bad boy, and then they want to clean them all up and make them all different, right? So I get this bad boy, and I'm constantly I'm wearing him out about changing this habit and changing that habit, and don't do this and don't do that. So it came down, and then he became really good, and he, you know, and they considered him for deacon in the church, and I said, but you know, you still smoking. And he said, listen, I've given up everything. I've given up partying. He could just go down the tick list of things that he's given up. And he really gave them up because he didn't want to do them anymore. He said, all I have left, the only vice I have left is smoking. And I said, yeah, but you know that every time you smoke, you make God out a lie because you don't really want to smoke, but yet you can't seem to break the habit. And he didn't want to hear that. And I'm definitely not saying I was right in saying it. I'm saying that's just where I was at that time, you know. But then he came back to me and he said, you know, you're right. He said, I really hate smoking, you know, but I haven't been able to get it up. But when you said that I make God out a lie that doesn't even have the capacity to take smoking from me, he said, that really got me. And he said, and he took his cigarettes and he broke them up and dropped it in the toilet and he flushed the toilet and he never smoked again. You know, it was just something, but it wasn't because of what I was saying, that it pricked something in him that brought up it aroused his confidence in himself and got him right at that level that he needed to be able to make the change that he wanted to make. So see, you got to want to make that change. You got to want to take that stretch. And I can tell when people don't want to, you know, and it could be like, I'm just too tired. I don't have enough energy to put forth into working on that. I didn't get the news that I wanted to hear from my cardiologist, and I've been home in the bed for 2 days just thinking about what I'm gonna do now, because what I had hoped I would get, I didn't get it. And so, you know, they tried to explain it to me. My mind is not making sense of it at all. You see, you had an in-STEMI heart attack, not a STEMI heart attack. They're two different kinds. They come from two different, you know, reasons, and they take different kinds of therapy. But you told me you could put a stent in and that would take care of this. I go in to have a stent put in, and at the end, she didn't put the stent in because it's not this kind of heart attack, it's that kind of heart attack. And the best treatment for that kind is medicine. I said, I'm already taking 10 pills. So now they quadruple one of the heart medicines, add 2 more heart medicines, add some more blood pressure medicine. So that all of these pills, and then we'll see how you are in a couple of months. You know, so if I'm not good in a couple of months, then what? So you're only 60 to 70% blocked right now. Like what, you're gonna wait till I'm 100% blocked? You know, so I don't understand it. But I'm trying to be with it. But I stayed in bed for 2 days because I'm tired. You know, physically. She says, I think you're depressed. I said, I'm not depressed. I'm tired physically, you know. And so it's kind of like that. When we are tired, we can't put forth our best effort, you know. But sometimes we have to accept, you know, karmically, this is where you are, you know. And so I spent 2 days accepting karmically, you know, this is where I am. Now, how wonderful it will be to be able to choose my coming and going. Right now, I'm just choosing that I'm not going to go to Bhutan. So I will call today. I, Pannavati, feel too tired to go to Bhutan just to have a party with the king. You know, he's just a man, and I'm not going to go over there and be doing any other teaching, you know. So just to be able to accept this audience, it's not worth it to me. I'm just I'm too tired. But if they had been able to fix my problem yesterday, then I was ready to, buy my ticket and to participate in it. And so that's it. But you have to be able to have the strength to look and see what time it is, and you have to make your choices based on that. So I'm okay. I'm okay today. Some things I wanted to do, I'm just not going to be able to do. Maybe not only that, maybe not hardly anything else, for a while, or maybe not ever. So that's why I'm glad I got the raising the consciousness of the dead training, and also a POA practice. I was given a POA initiation and practice 20 years ago. I didn't know what I had. I didn't understand. All I knew was that my master could put on wet clothes and sit out in the snow and dry them, and so I said, I want that. And she said, what do you want it for? She said, you can just here. She said, we needed that in the Himalayas where we trained. They get 1 cup of water a week, and they had to learn how to make the water, change the molecular structure of the water so that they'd have enough water for all week. So all you gotta do is go turn on the faucet and put your clothes in the dryer. You don't need, your reason for wanting this is not even correct. You don't even understand what it is and what it means. And, it's like giving a little baby a book of matches. And so we shouldn't run too fast, and I'm through now, trying to attain something that we read about. We should spend more time recognizing, our own and reaching for our own Buddha nature, especially at times when our own heart condemns us because we haven't attained to our own goal. The best thing that we can do for others is to encourage ourselves in this way. We don't have to try to teach them a highfalutin Dharma. That's just words. That's language prajna. That is a form of wisdom, but it's the lowest form. Language prajna. Because language prajna goes from the point of ignorance to some understanding. But then the second kind of prajna is contemplative illumination. And that's where one is constantly reflecting on the wisdom of the Dharma until its mind becomes your mind. So don't get stuck in language prajna. It's one of my teachers would say, don't practice, no use Dharma. Yeah. Somebody give us some, close us out today.
All the benefit from the merit we've attained today, listening to the Dharma. May beings everywhere come to encounter the Dharma, even by chance, hear the Dharma, become attracted by it, curious about it, and pick it up. May all be well.
Thank you for coming today.